The dust has finally settled. Hawkins survived. The gates are closed, the Upside Down is sealed, and the final battle is over. But if you finished the Stranger Things Season 5 finale and felt something was still missing, like the story didn't fully click into place, that feeling isn't in your head. You were missing a piece, a huge one, because what Netflix showed you was the end of the story, not the beginning of it. Most fans think they know Henry Creel. They think they understand Vecna, a monster, a psychopath, a villain born broken, but that version of the story is incomplete. The real origin of everything you just watched doesn't start with 11. It doesn't start with Hawkins' lab, and it definitely doesn't start in the Upside Down. It starts in 1959, and it exists in a story that most people never saw. While millions watched the show, only a tiny fraction experienced the first shadow, the official stage play written by the Duffer Brothers themselves. And this isn't some optional side story. This is canon. This is the missing chapter that redefines Henry Creel, recontextualizes Vecna's choices, and completely changes how you're supposed to understand the Stranger Things ending. If you didn't see the play, you don't actually know who Henry was. You don't know why he truly hates humanity. You don't know what he lost. And you definitely don't know where his powers really came from, because no, he wasn't simply born that way. Henry Creel wasn't always alone. That's the first lie the show lets you believe. In Season 4 and Season 5, Henry is framed as a child with no empathy, someone who was always destined to become a monster. But the stage play reveals something tragic that never made it to the screen. When Henry arrived in Hawkins in 1959, he didn't just sit in the attic listening to clocks. He met someone who changed everything. Her name was Patty Newby. And yes, that last name matters. Patty was the adopted sister of Bob Newby, the same Bob who would later sacrifice himself trying to save Joyce and Will. In high school, Patty was the only person who truly saw Henry. Not as a freak, not as a threat, as a broken, frightened boy who didn't understand what was happening inside his own mind. Henry didn't want to hurt his family at first. That's another major misconception. According to the play, his original plan was to escape. He wanted to leave Hawkins with Patty and disappear forever. She represented the one future where he didn't become Vecna, the one timeline where he could have been human, and then she was taken from him. The play makes it clear that Patty's disappearance, death, and removal from Henry's life is the emotional breaking point. This changes everything about the Season 5 finale. When Vecna hesitates in the final moments, when you see that flicker of something almost human behind his eyes, it isn't because of 11. It's because of Patty. She is the memory that never left him. The show frames Vecna as someone trying to end the world. But the deeper lore reveals something far more tragic. He wasn't trying to destroy reality. He was trying to remake it into a place where loss didn't exist. And that brings us to the biggest reveal Netflix barely explained at all. Henry's powers were never just something he was born with. Victor Creel, Henry's father, served during World War II on a ship called the United States Eldridge. If that name sounds familiar, it should. It's the ship tied to the infamous Philadelphia experiment, a real-world conspiracy theory involving government tests to make ships invisible, experiments that allegedly tore holes in reality itself. In the first shadow, this conspiracy is no longer a theory. Victor Creel didn't just come back traumatized. He came back changed, exposed, infected by something beyond our dimension. The play reveals that Victor carried the influence of Dimension X back into the real world, and Henry was born as a result of that exposure. Henry isn't just connected to the Upside Down. He is a product of it. That's why Dr. Brenner was so obsessed with him. Brenner didn't stumble across Henry by accident. His own father was involved in the same experiments decades earlier. Hawkins' lab wasn't originally about psychic children or Cold War espionage. It was about understanding, controlling, and weaponizing the same force Victor Creel encountered in the 1940s. When you realize this, the entire series shifts. Stranger Things was never just science versus the supernatural. It was a generational curse. A chain reaction caused by human arrogance, passed from father to son, and exploited by the government at every stage. This also finally settles the biggest debate in the fandom: who was really in control, Vecna or the Mind Flayer? For years, fans argued about which one was the true villain. Season 5 hints at an answer, but the first shadow confirms it. When Henry first entered Dimension X, the Mind Flayer didn't exist. What he found was something else entirely, a neutral, formless shadow, a cloud of particles, potential energy without purpose. Henry gave it purpose. Obsessed with spiders, especially black widows, Henry used his mind to shape the shadow into the spider-like entity we now call the Mind Flayer. That means the hierarchy is finally clear. Vecna is the architect, the Mind Flayer is the weapon. But here's the terrifying part. The shadow existed long before Henry. It wasn't evil. It was ancient, powerful, and neutral. Henry corrupted it, not the other way around. This redefines the Upside Down itself. The Demogorgons, the Demobats, the creatures we've been calling monsters for years aren't inherently evil. They're wildlife. Animals from another dimension that Henry enslaved and bent to his will. When Eleven defeats Vecna in the finale, she isn't just saving Hawkins. She's freeing an entire dimension from his control, and now we get to the plot hole that bothered lore hunters the moment the stage play released. Joyce, Hopper, Bob, they all knew Henry. In the first shadow, they go to school with him, they interact with him. He's not some forgotten ghost. He's part of their lives. So why, throughout seasons 1 to 4, does Joyce never say, "This reminds me of that strange kid from high school"? Why does Hopper never connect the dots? The answer is darker than you think. The play strongly implies that after the Creel incident, after Henry's supposed death and the destruction of his family, Hawkins was subjected to a massive cover-up. Brenner and Hawkins' lab didn't just erase evidence. They erased memory, psychological suppression, conditioning. A town taught to forget. That's why the adults in Hawkins seem so oblivious for so long. It's not bad writing, it's intentional. They were trained to look away, to ignore the impossible, because remembering would expose the truth about the lab. So when you look back at the Stranger Things finale with all of this in mind, the story becomes much bigger. Henry Creel wasn't born a monster. He was created by a government experiment, broken by the loss of the only person who loved him, and consumed by a power that should never have been touched. If you only watched Netflix, you saw the battle. But if you know the story of the first shadow, you understand the war. Stranger Things may be over, but the universe isn't. There are still secrets buried in this world, and we haven't even scratched the surface of what's coming next. And if you want to know the other major secret the show quietly hinted at, especially the truth about Max's fate, you already know where to click.